Hello and good. Oh, that's loud. Sorry. Hello and good morning, everyone. We'll be starting right now, even if the timer wasn't down till 0. But we're a little bit behind on schedule, and we don't want to waste your time, of course. With us is Nicolas of P3. Speaking of Quo Vadis and P3, we've just had the hangover breakfast at P3 stage upstairs. And there's still a lot of breakfast left, so if any of you are hungry and want to grab something to eat, after the talk, of course, it might be a good idea to step up one floor and grab yourself something to eat. Well, without too much further ado, I'll give the word to Nicolas, who will be telling us about where to go and customer journeys. Enjoy. Your 12 minutes, your stage.
Thank you very much. So, as said, my name is Nicolas, and today I'm going to talk about air taxis. We are currently living through a kind of revolution of mobility. Mobility itself is being rethought and understood more and more as a service, and the demand for this service is really increasing. At the same time, cities are undergoing change. They're getting more and more dense, and the problems are only getting more problematic in the future. As an answer to that, air taxis, urban aerial mobility, are opening up the currently almost unused urban airspace for a new kind of mobility to help cities cope with that. Just take a look at the headlines behind me. The first companies are celebrating their first flight. Others are actually testing real flight operations in Singapore. We have arrived in the future. We are testing air taxis in Singapore. And the third ones are already singing the swan song for the mass of the startups that are out there. Without doubting the air taxi as a viable alternative, they just say, okay, the startups are going to fail and we are going to rise up to the sky. The first flight, which is currently often being reported on, is just a very small step in a business model. It's an important step, of course. You need a flying air taxi to have an air taxi business model, but it's only a very small step. Let's take a look at the specific success factors for urban aerial mobility business models. The first success factor is public acceptance. There, a lot of things are hidden, from noise to the image an air taxi has. Is it something, a plaything for the rich, or is it actually useful for the masses? We have the customer journey, that is the experience an individual has with the system UAM. And we have the enabling environment, where things from the legal environment up to a functioning air traffic management are hidden. You can't fly thousands of air taxis through a city with humans in the loop. Let's take a look at another technology to make this a little bit more vivid. The maglev train in Asia is very successful. Here everything is positive. The public acceptance is there, the customer journey is positive, and the enabling environment is there. In Germany, one of those pillars is missing, the public acceptance. After the crash, everything, went down and the whole business model was doomed to fail. Currently, we see that for air taxis, for UAM, a lot of emphasis is put on the technical aspects, on the legal aspects, and not so much on the optimization of the customer journey. But that is very important if you want this technology to be accepted by everyone. Let's take a closer look at this customer journey. We see 5 stations in the customer journey. First, we have the individual preference rating. What does that mean? I rate every time I want to go somewhere the mobility options I have. Do I walk to the corner store? Do I need to take the train to another city district? Or do I need to take the plane to another city entirely? We have the pre-journey experience. That is, how do I get to the vertiport? The vertiport is the station where the UAM takes off and lands again. How is the vertiport designed? Is it aesthetically pleasing? How is the check-in experience, if there's something like check-in? Then we have the whole flight experience. How is the user experience in flight? How is the cabin designed? Do I feel safe? Please note that actual flight safety does not have anything to do with perceived flight safety. If you look at the numbers for aircraft, a lot of people are afraid of flying, although they should be more afraid of walking around the corner. Then after landing, we have the post-journey experience. That is, usually my vertiport is not directly at my destination. How is the last mile designed? How do I get from the vertiport to where I actually need to end up? And then at the very end, we have the monitor and maintain phase. For me to have a viable, a sustainable business model with UAM, I need to keep UAM in the mind of the customer for him to become a repeat customer and not just a one-time experience. Let's take a closer look at the pre- and post-journey experience and a little bit also the individual preference rating. For that, to focus on that, we first need to understand how people move through a city. And more importantly, how do your customers move through a city? Fortunately, we have the crowd data that can actually tell us. For UAM, one of the first business cases is transporting people from the airport to the city. But currently, it's really unclear where do people go after they left the airport. Nobody can really tell you. And more importantly, again, which of those people are actually relevant for our business case? We have a three-step process to answer those questions. First, we gather mobile data. Anonymous mobile data. Yes, we P3 own the data, and yes, it's GDPR compliant. Then in the second step, we classify the data according to certain parameters and certain personas. And then in the third step, we use this classified data to gather actual useful business intelligence. In that case, for the placement of vertiports in a city or for answering the question, where do people go after they have left the airport? Let's take a closer look at how that looks like for LA as a use case. Here behind me in the heat map, you see the density of people where they end up after they left the airport. Please keep in mind the word density because it's really important. So, for example, people go to downtown Los Angeles with a disproportionately high density compared to the immediate surroundings. That's why the word density is important. Now the second step comes, okay? Which of those people are actually relevant for my business case? I need to prioritize them. And if I prioritize them, for example, according to business travelers or people with a higher spending potential, I end up at this heat map around behind me. Let's take a look at where those people go. Even after prioritization, downtown remains a viable alternative for them. They also go to the Universal Studios, and they go to Santa Monica Pier. And I don't know if there's somebody from McDonald's here, but I have bad news for you. They also go to In-N-Out Burger, which is a successful burger chain in the US. Now, what follows after that? Of course, I now need to look at how is the connection, the current connection between the airport and my destination. For example, with Santa Monica Pier, best case, it's going to take me 20 minutes from the airport to get there. Best case is nighttime. If I go in the morning rush, it can take me up to 1 hour 40. And that's a much more viable alternative for an air taxi. We have to repeat this process for all of the heat spots. We have to repeat this process for the interconnections between the heat spots. And then we might end up at something like this, which represents a transport network for a city. Of course, yes, this depends on a lot of assumptions. For example, technical parameters of the UAM, legal environment, and yes, also, as we have just seen, on daytime, nighttime. That's normal. But now we have a data-based opportunity to generate a whole new business model where we would have really struggled to say, okay, how can I establish this in a city like LA? With this, I think we can already come to a couple of conclusions. So first, we see the first business case that UAM has used is, okay, let's transport people from the city to, from the airport to the city. We didn't know where they went, okay, so we answered this with some data. Now we can use this as a starting point for our business model, and yes, of course, it will never be perfect. We learn through experience. We need to optimize our business model afterwards, but this is a very good starting point for that. A couple of conclusions, a couple of things I would like you to take from this, basically. So first, a technical solution is not a viable business case, at least in most cases. If you build it, they will come, it will fail. The second one is you need to optimize all the pillars of success and every phase, every step of the UAM customer journey. Because if you ignore one of the customer journey stations, or if one of the pillars of success breaks away, your whole business model is in danger. And the third one is that we live in a world of data, and now, I was just in the machine learning panel upstairs, we can use that data to gather actual useful business intelligence. We already do that for a lot of cases that range from the placement of cell towers to shared mobility service, as you just seen, up in the air and also down on the ground. Thank you very much, with 1 minute to spare.
Okay, thank you very much. You know the drill. 12 minutes talk, 6 minutes questions for you. Who's gonna be first? Not everyone at once.
You're so amazed by air taxis that you lost your voice.
So how long will it take until we have those air taxis in Germany, maybe?
Well, Germany always is a special case, but as you have seen in the beginning, at the end of the year, in autumn, they're going to start flight operation testing in Singapore, directly at the city center. Volocopter, German company, one of the leading companies. Please note, we have 2 of the leading UAM air taxi companies worldwide here in Germany. They are really front runners, and they have already tested in Dubai. So I think it's really much, much closer than you might think and than you might feel in your stomach.
Okay. No, question.
I would like to know how you gathered the data. Did you also do a questionnaire? Did you ask the customers or the potential customers what kind of expectations do you have and what kind of different methods did you use there?
So what I have presented here really is just based on mobile data. We gather the mobile data, and as a waste product, we can use that to gather business intelligence. The next step, of course, is to verify this, because, I mean, yes, data can tell you a lot of things, also things that are wrong. You need to verify that on the ground. But the key point here is that we have a starting point for that. Before, you would have said, okay, let's get some people together, we sit in a room and think about it. Okay, where do people go? And then you go out and do all the questioning and so on. Now you have a starting point for that, and you can really cut down on important business, on the required time for important business decisions.
You said we have 2 big companies or leaders in this field here in Germany, but we start testing it in Singapore. Do you think that one of the biggest challenges that we are not testing it in Germany is that we don't have the acceptance, or what do you think is the reason for that?
I think the acceptance is there. If you look, for example, at Ingolstadt, they have a really big initiative. They are pushing forward. The Bürgermeister there is really convinced that air taxis are the future, and they're rebuilding their train station to have a vertiport on the roof. The problem is in Germany, as compared to other countries, we can't just decide, okay, this is cool, let's do it. In the city center, we have a legal process. This legal process is very much sped up because The bureaucrats, okay, we might laugh about them, but in this case, they're really pushing forward with the legislation to make this possible. But it's a process that is there, and we can speed up the process, but it's still a process. In other cities, we might have less obstacles there. But in Germany, we have flight tested those here in Germany. Yes, not in a city center, but there is flight tests, and it's going to come to the city.
I'm not sure if it's too technical, because I wanted to catch up with your question on how you gathered the data actually. So even if it's data, so passive data, and not with a questionnaire or something like that. So anyway, you need to collect the data. So did those people need to install an app so that you can crawl the data? Or yeah, I know it's really technical, but maybe you can shed some more light on that.
No, don't worry. So we gather the data based on smartphone data. We use that to compare mobile networks. If you look at the comparison of mobile network, okay, Germany, Vodafone versus Telecom, or oh no, Germany has worse mobile network than Albania, and that's the data behind this, and that's also the data behind those points.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I'd like to know what role Lilium will play in the future of UAM.
Well, hopefully, as a German, hopefully it will play a leading role. They are really pushing ahead together with Volocopter. They are representing two very much different technical solutions. We don't know which will be the most viable alternative in the future, but they're really pushing ahead. And so I think they will play a leading role in that.
I have another question. I'm wondering, what is your opinion? If we have the self-driving cars in the future, do we still need this air mobility?
Well, I mean, we have cars. Why do we need trains? We have buses. Why do we need taxis? We can walk. Why do we need planes? It's not about we have something and why do we need another thing. It's about how can we solve the problems of the future. And the problem is congestion. The problem is that everybody is moving to the city. The problem is also pollution. I mean, a lot of self-driving cars, okay, we have Tesla and so on, but they're still driving with petrol, and there's no single solution to that.
Nicolas, thank you very much. Inspiring talk, cool answers to cool questions, and we'll be moving on shortly.